It's very important for us to understand the threshold we're at now. We can either let the poverty alleviation things engulf us and have more deaths, more dying, more disease, or we can take this opportunity now to shift the whole focus onto poverty alleviation and social investment that brings funds in from the private sector into international public-private partnerships. Now, not one government has all the answers, not one government has all the resources, and this is the problem because we have allowed the borders between countries, between public sector, private sector, NGOs, individuals, manufacturers, Fortune 500 companies. We've allowed all those borders to give us an excuse for why we cannot do poverty alleviation in a practical and global scale. Well, those excuses are now fallen down. Like the Berlin Wall, we have now dismantled the borders in people's minds and opened up using the technologies to connect people through social media. So we now have to look at where all the resources are in the world and how they're connected together, and then mobilize them to empower the poor, to reduce that poverty alleviation in a way that is practical, green, and sustainable. So if you look at the United Nations, Ban Ki-moon has a fantastic policy for the Millennium Development Goals, but we have missed most of the targets for the last 8-10 years. We need to refocus that policy and recommit the resources from around the world to achieving those goals, because people are dying unnecessarily and we can do something about it. We can be the change that we want to see in the world, and it is only by mobilizing can we actually make that happen. So the policy is with the UN. The cash is with the private sector. Many people, funds from all over the world, sovereign wealth funds, pension funds, property funds, humanitarian funds, foundations, they have more than enough funds. Just in the foundation sector, there's $2.12 trillion. In the sovereign wealth funds, there's one fund that has over $1 trillion, just sitting, parked, waiting for big opportunities, waiting to move into the marketplace. Today, one of the funds in Norway has announced that it's allocating 5% of its reserves to green projects, to green sustainable communities. So this is fantastic. So when we look at the recession, we think, okay, there's no money. That's not true. The smart money is parked in a safe place, waiting to find big projects that are sustainable and green and that are exciting and that can make a huge difference. And that money now is moving into the market. So I have been able to go out, I've been to 40 countries in total. I've worked on Wall Street. I've gone to Silicon Valley for the technologies. I've spent 2 years in Hollywood mobilizing celebrities and the production facilities. I've spent 8 years in Washington on Capitol Hill, so I understand the structure and what is blocking a lot of big transformations happening. And I've also traveled around Africa, the Middle East, Asia, galvanizing resources, bringing people together in unity to solve some of the biggest social problems that we face now. And so with an international public-private partnership, we are at a threshold of success in this transformation. But it's not the old model. It's not giving a handout to the poor as a charity. It's not investing in a small project to do a well. It's taking a sustainable and green approach to mass transformation and mass collaboration. We cannot do things to the poor and make them sustainable. We cannot give them handouts of food and think that they can grow their own crops. We need to look at the systems approach. We need to look at the things that they don't have and then move those resources into position so that the supply and the demand can be met. And that's what we have done. With all of our programs around the world, we now have 14 social transformation programs. That is the simplicity, but also the profoundness of this work. Using the global technologies, using a global approach, we're able to mobilize and unify resources that are in disparate places, in disparate organizations. So with this new model, we are able to mobilize, invest in the social structures that make a difference in these countries. We're able to empower the poor in a green and sustainable way. And that makes good sense. It protects food security, it protects energy security, it protects economic security for that country, for that continent, and for the world as a whole. Because we cannot say, oh, those people are dying in another country, we can't care about them. We cannot say, oh, those people not being sustainable doesn't have an impact on me. It does. We all know it does. And so through the mechanism of international public-private partnerships, with private sector funds, public sector policies, public sector resources, private sector technologies, volunteers, stakeholders, manufacturers, Fortune 500 companies, everyone has a role. And the biggest role that can be played is by the community groups themselves. And they're ready, they're willing, and they're prepared to make it happen. So together, by unifying those resources, we can have the next wave of growth and prosperity, but not just for the richest of the rich, for everyone in the supply chain. And that is where the role of international public-private partnerships comes into place. It's powerful, it's simple, but it's very profound, and it will make a huge difference.